like you lost another one.
Welcome to Summer Showcase. I'm Michael Washington, and fresh off his trip from Europe, really fresh, like back in the States for about an hour or so, Randy Schrader's here at the Summer Showcase. We are discussing everything ELF. First and foremost, Randy, thank you. I know that it's been crazy that you're just back in the States, and here you are talking to me. I'm sure that I was the first person you thought of when you landed back on on American soil too, and not your bed.
That is true. That is true. Well, hey, it's been a fun year, and what a way to kind of cap it off here at the end. So thank you for always having me on. And yes, you were the first person I thought. We landed. We had no delays or anything like that. And I'm like, good, I'll be able to make Michael's show. Um, and
It's your show too, Randy. Don't sell yourself short. You've been here all year, so I mean,
hey, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for giving me a platform.
well, thank you for being on, and thank you for joining me on this, crazy adventure here. This is the season finale of Summer Showcase, not the series. We'll be back next year. Don't worry. Summer Showcase is not going anywhere. Uh, but yeah, it's been a crazy. You just landed back in the state. What were you up to? There was something going on over there in
Yeah.
there in Europe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a small little sightseeing trip over there.
Yeah, a little side.
Yeah, so so I think it's funny because Jamal from Athletes Forum reached out to me when I posted that I landed in London, and he was like, or I storied it. He's like, "What do you got going on?" I'm like, nothing much. Um, and No, so we were over there for the announcement of the Nordic Storm. Obviously, we have been working on this for 2 years. So this has been 2 years in the making, and I'm just thrilled that it's finally out in the open and we can talk about it. I appreciate you being discreet with it, and we are just excited that we have a team in the Nordics.
Yeah, Copenhagen, Denmark, that area, the Nordic Storm joining the 2025 ELF season here, marking the 18th team, as no departures have been announced yet. So, moving forward here, at least for the ELF, moving up to the 2025 season and hopefully beyond as well. I wanted to ask a question to you, Randy, and I didn't ask you off air. I wanted to ask you kind of on air to kind of get an explanation or whatever. Are you guys kind of the trendsetter for this whole border country homegrown thing? Was that something or was that something that was already in the works? Because I think I read online that they're allowing it for some other teams now too, or some other countries.
They had some exceptions this last year, especially for Hungary. I think was one of the teams they were allowed to do that with. Like they had access to some other countries that were bordering Czech Republic as well, I believe. I think the point of joining Denmark and Sweden, and yes, I saw all the comments online about why not Norway and Finland. Trust me, we tried. We tried very, very hard. We annoyed the heck out of the league for that. They did not grant us that. So, and that's okay. We feel very confident that we can put out an extremely good team and roster with the Danish and Swedish guys. But as far as the trendsetters, I don't think so. But I do know that the point of having a team in Copenhagen is, so for those who haven't been to Copenhagen, there's a bridge that connects Copenhagen with Malmo, Sweden. It's literally across the Baltic. So that's how close the two cities are. I mean, it takes 30 minutes, 20 minutes to get from Denmark to Sweden and vice versa. So it's kind of like New York and Newark a little bit, maybe a little bit further. But
Maybe a little bit further.
to now not count them as the same would be kind of foolish, and foolish on the league's part for not kind of putting two markets together. And so we appreciate the league for letting us do that and have access to Sweden, because it does open up so many more possibilities for our franchise.
Yeah, for sure. And Jamal and I have talked a little bit, ever since the announcement or whatever, and I told him that there's a possibility of an allegiance change, maybe. I think it's
Let's go.
kind of have in the works. I feel like it needs to be up there, especially with the personal connection as well. But
let's go.
Randy, this you said you've been working on it for 2 years. When did you guys actually start realizing that this was going to get more serious, or at least for you anyways? Like, when was that? Because I think that is always important, because it always starts off as like an idea, right? And then you're like, well, I think we can do it if we do this, this, and this. But when did it start becoming kind of a realistic goal for not just you, but the rest of the ownership group?
Well, I'll just be frank. I mean, it becomes a realistic goal when you have the money to back it. And,
right.
I'm blessed in my job, but I'm 30 years old. I don't have millions of dollars to put into a team right now. And so, I think when we started finally getting some serious interest from some pretty serious people in Denmark, that was when it hit me like, there's a good chance that this happens. And I'll give a little bit of background. So Caroline and I, I played for the Stuttgart Surge in 2022, got put on IR, and then subsequently cut from the Surge after 4 games. And we went on Caroline and I were like, hey, when are we ever in our lives ever going to have a time where we don't have kids or jobs or anything like that? So let's just go on a trip, kind of put it all behind us. So we went on like a 2-week European jaunt, and we went to Monaco. Now I remember it like yesterday. We were sitting out looking at the marina in Monaco. We just kind of both looked at each other and were like, Copenhagen needs an ELF team. At that point, I had played in Copenhagen for years. Those people were family. It was tough to leave them and go to the Surge in the first place. I mean, that was like our second home. We were just like, we need to bring an ELF franchise to this area, to this region, to these people. So went to Copenhagen on that trip after Monaco as well. And in Copenhagen had the first meeting with the league. I got some contacts from just having played in the league, and just basically asked, what do we need? How much money we need to raise? What do you need to see from us? And that was kind of where it was birthed. And then called the president of the Towers, who I played for, and he was all about it. He's a go-getter. Jacob Munster, he's on the board as well. He's awesome. He's probably one of, or the biggest reason why this is happening too. Just he's amazing. And from there, it was just building. We always kind of joke like we have a dream team of people. We have Jacob Munster brought in Michael Planita, who's the chairman of the board. He's putting in some big bucks for this project, and he's amazing. He does such a good job, and that was when we got him involved, was when I was like, man, this is gonna happen, because this guy not only wants it to happen, but he has the resources to do so. And then we got some other great people on board, like Lars Green, who's a good friend of ours, and Peter Fries as well, and then Paula Christensen, who was just announced as the GM. And all of those people have played pivotal roles. But it was really when we started kind of putting the pieces together, that I was like, man, nothing's going to stop us from putting this together. So sorry for the long answer, but that's when that's when I think it hit me, and it was probably fall of last year that I
Yeah.
was like, it was like a little tiny snowball that was rolling, and it turned into it couldn't be stopped.
Well, I think I might have thrown you off a little bit with the format here because usually it's just us bantering back and forth, but I'm kind of like throwing like questions at you, like it's a
I
yeah, like
love
the
it.
first
No
the
worries.
first time I ever talked to you, you were the quarterback at the Copenhagen. You were with the Towers. I think you were going to well, you guys they split their season in the CEFL, right? Like they do the little split season. So you led them to a Mermaid Bowl that year, and then you subsequently retired, I believe, right? Was that right
Yep.
after the Mermaid Bowl? So,
Yep.
so you had gone back actually to Copenhagen after you got done with Stuttgart, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yep. And
yes,
I mean, I'd say 90% of the reason I went back, I was gonna retire after Stuttgart, but 90% of the reason I went back was because it's like I got to go back in order to help make this thing happen,
yeah, for sure.
and be there. So that was a huge reason why I went
Yeah,
back.
I was say so. It must be nice to be able to have this and put this together from scratch and bring something to an area that's given you so much. Like I can't imagine
Really.
that you are like I'm sure that when you signed this weekend, there was some emotions. I'm sure that was probably running through you there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we've done to this point is to try and grow the game in Europe. I mean, and I had the privilege of meeting so many great people like Jim Tomsula this weekend, and just Mark Maglioli, all these guys, these Americans that are over in Europe. And they all say the same thing, which is the reason we're over here is to help grow the game. And if I can be a part of that in a very small way, just like what you're doing, just like what Jamal is doing, that's that just gives me so much purpose. And so I feel like we're growing the game over there. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Because it's a game that we all love, and it's a game that, in my opinion, is the best sport in the world.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm here with Randy Trader, one of the founders, I guess you could say, and brain trusts behind the Nordic Storm, the new expansion team, the 18th ELF team for the 2025 season. Randy's been with me all year. If you've been a staple for the show or a regular viewer of the show for Summer Showcase, talking everything ELF, Randy, again, congratulations. I didn't even, what I just realized we've been talking this whole time. I didn't say congratulations to you.
Oh,
Congratulations, man. That's awesome, bro.
hey, I appreciate it. We we've done a lot of work up to this
Yeah,
point, and it's only just begun.
yeah,
So it feels good. We had a nice, I would say, 2 or 3 day break there over championship weekend where we kind of sat back and we're like, wow, what did we just do? But it's back to the grind.
and the great thing about it is you were there at the championship game. You were able to be there for the honors awards all weekend. 41,000 plus at this championship game gives you guys something to strive for now that you've been there in person, right? Like that's
Yeah,
where you want to be. And ironically enough, I believe the 2025 championship site was announced, and it's in Stuttgart, isn't
it
it?
is. Yep.
Talk
It's
about
in
full circle, huh? Maybe we'll see you
exactly.
guys. See the Nordic Storm in there.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'll take it. That was the first thing I said when we signed. I said, "I'll see you guys next year in Stuttgart, and we'll be in it." But that's just I feel like you have to have that mentality. Where
oh for
I
sure.
hope when these signings start rolling out, um, I think people will see that we're serious.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think anybody that understands uh, what we saw with like Madrid and Paris in the last couple of years, that if you have a good team, a, behind a team, like a good a good management team behind a team, and you can find the right pieces to put into place, you can definitely be a formidable you know threat down the road. So I know I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about the head coaching as hopefully announcement here in the near future, and we can start seeing some of these players involved as well. Because I know from just knowing you personally that uh, this team is going to be in good hands. Because I can't imagine that the rest of your management team is or ownership is not as wonderful as you are. So I have no doubt that there's some football minded guys there for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, they're much smarter, better people than me. So we got the former president of the Copenhagen Towers, who was the most successful president in Danish history. So all he wants to do is win football games. We got Peter Fries, who also ran football club and runs a successful company there. Got Michael Planeta, who's I don't know any other word to describe him, just like a dog. Like he's just
Mm,
whatever he wants, he goes gets, and he's a very smart business person. And he also played football for a long time, so he wants to win. And then you got Paolo Christensen, the GM, who's just announced today. Um, all he wants to do is win football games. His son is Joachim Christensen, who played with the Rhein Fire and Frankfurt Galaxy, won 2 championships in the ELF. He doesn't play around. And and then Lars Green, who's I think one of the most successful business people in Denmark and the entire Nordics. So to have all of them together, I feel like we should. Everybody talks a big game in the off season, but it is our job. It is our job to put together the best team we possibly can, and that's what we're gonna do.
yeah, yeah, I know, and I fully trust it. And I think, like I said, the brain trust behind it is solid. The foundation's good. So I mean, you have experience in Copenhagen with the Towers. You won 3 championships with them or 4?
Yeah, 3
Three.
national
Three.
championships, 1
Yeah.
international. So
Yeah, so you got 4 championships that you brought with Copenhagen. So they have a rich history of winning over there. So the ELF better take notice for 2025 because there is a storm coming. Uh, for sure.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And I just saw Jamal.
Yeah,
Malmo has great sushi.
yeah.
I've never had sushi in Malmo, so I'll have to check that out. Jamal.
That's probably the least shocking thing you've ever
Yeah,
said is that
wait,
you haven't
why
had
has
sushi.
Jamal's been to Malmo?
Apparently,
Jamal.
yeah.
You
It's
gotta,
Jamal.
there's a story in here. There's a story here.
And Jamal wanted to know what's your biggest advice that you've gotten so far putting a team together.
Um, that's a good question. I think a lot of people think you're crazy when you tell them, and I got that a lot. But I think it sounds cliche, but the successful people that I know, when I told them this, were all for it. They say, hey, like go all in on it, and don't give up till it's over. So that's probably the best advice I got was, and maybe the deeper advice in there is maybe listen to people who have done similar things, not some random person on Reddit or something.
Yeah, I would say probably avoid the internet if you could.
Yeah.
They always seem to think they're smarter than the next person running or even playing for that matter. For that instance,
Yeah.
so probably a good idea to avoid anything that's internet related for sure. Actually, you should avoid advice from me too because I'm on the internet pretty often. So
Oh, you're doing your own, you're making it happen as well. And that's what Jamal, I'll need to think about that question probably and really think back to what's the best advice. But
I would imagine it's just finding the key guys that fit what you want for the dynamic and vision of a team, right? Like from the players to the management personnel to the ownership group. Like I would imagine that you'd all want to have like don't want to be uniformed like the same and be robots, but you probably want a very similar vision across the board. Uh, I I know that if I'm putting a team together, I'm looking at what's the best makeup because you're bringing in what's the ELF rosters overall
yeah,
50,
53 plus the 10
53.
man practice squad.
So you're bringing in 53 personalities,
Yeah,
right? And they're going to be all different, plus whatever you have for a management team. So I would imagine that you'd want to try to have an atmosphere that is cohesive, right? You don't want a disruption. You don't want a storm per se
yeah.
of personalities, right? Like you want strong personalities, but you want to make sure that it's all copacetic across the board, right? Like that would be
And
my guess.
I think at the end of the day, you want people that want to win football games.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think
And
that's
that's what you got competitive guys that are quiet. you got competitive guys that are loud. You got competitive guys that are showmen. You got some different personalities, like you said, on team. It's putting them all together,
Yep.
and making sure that it doesn't implode. Which I think when we announce our head coach, he's had a lot of experience doing that. So we feel pretty confident in that. And I also think at the end of the day, it's putting together 53 people plus an ownership group plus a bunch of other volunteers, coaches as well, that are going to help us get to where we want to go, that are competitive, want to win football games, and want to grow football in the Nordics.
Yeah, no doubt.
We meet those three criteria, we're gonna have a successful franchise. And I'm reading Jamal's trip to. My wife is in the background. She's like, Why was Jamal in Malmo, such a random place?" So he said he went and did some traveling and went from Stockholm down to Malmo and missed his train and spent the whole night in Malmo, roaming the streets. So not the safest place to be, I will say. Yeah. Yeah, you should have just walked across that bridge there, swam across the sound. Depends on where you are. Malmo's a beautiful place. There's a couple areas I would not go roaming around all night in, but that's Jamal's here to tell the tale, so I think he's all right.
I think he's okay. Athletes Forum Jamal Clay. Go follow him on Twitter, YouTube, and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for him as well, because he's done.
Night in Copenhagen. Sorry. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
he did it night in Copenhagen. Oh, okay. He's done wonders for the ELF, and he's going to continue covering everything. I know he put out an instant reaction video that was fantastic.
Yes.
When you guys announced it as well, so that was awesome for sure as well. All right, so that's out of the way. So big news. Congratulations again. You guys are going to be definitely busy. I have a feeling that unfortunately your schedule may not allow you to return on a regular basis next year. However, I would love to have you back at some point in time next year, obviously, for the show, if you're able to make it.
Let's make it happen. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen for sure. Now I just have to find a co-host that's as reliable and awesome as you are. So that's going to be tough.
I appreciate it.
Maybe I can get Caroline to hop on here. She seems to have a pretty good idea what's going on.
She has more experience than that. She's a sports broadcasting. A sports broadcasting degree. I don't. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Maybe I can take some pointers from her, because I don't have one. Believe it or not, I don't have one at all. I don't have a degree in that any aspect of anything.
I would not.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just talk a lot, and I guess it works perfect in that sense. CKCustoms.com. Go hit them up as well. Make sure you follow that. Local, shop local, as well. All right, let's get into first. I want to talk before we get into the game, because kind of chronological order. The honors. Obviously, Kyle Kitchens is Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think anybody was really shocked by that. That's his third in a row, if I'm correct, right? Or is that his fourth?
I'll need to
I know this is third in Berlin. Did he have one when he was with? Was it Frankfurt? No, not Frankfurt. Was it Frankfurt? No, I don't remember. Pretty sure that's his third in Berlin. Dude's a monster. I had him on last year for an interview, and he's an absolute monster. One of the nicest individuals in the world. I wish nothing but the success for him. He loves it in Berlin. He's having a great time over there. I'd love to see him get a championship brought home at some point in time, though. So Leipzig.
Three-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he was in Leipzig. That's what it was. He was with the
only
Kings.
time he wasn't was last year. Was AJ Wetland last year?
Oh, he didn't win it last year? I thought he won it last year. So yeah, AJ Wetland might have won it last year. That's
I think he did. Anyway, yeah. Really, so I was at the honors in person, and it was really cool to see first of all, the fact that I keep saying this, but to see how football has grown in Europe is insane. Like, they were selling tickets, Caroline, for what, like $100 for the ELF honors? I don't know. There were a bunch of fans there.
Maceo Beard.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, I don't know what. I think AJ Wetland's been runner-up a couple years.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah. Which he was there. He's I haven't seen him in person since he was returning an interception on me for a touchdown in college. I threw him a pick six, and he made sure to bring that up when I saw him
of course he
at
did.
the honors. Um, so, um, but it was so cool to see. Like, so when we went up on stage to be announced as the Nordic Storm, there were some people chanting, um, "Randy, Randy." I was like, "What is going on here?" And it was the Surge. It was the Surge fan club that had traveled to the ELF honors, a team that I played for 2 years ago. Like,
Yeah,
and they weren't in the championship game. Their fans were just there. They're fans of football. They're fans of the ELF, and that was, I mean, that's a small representation of all the fans that were there. It was just, it was a
that's
cool.
incredible, though.
It was so
Yeah,
cool to see, just how the great game has grown, um, and and it was cool to see the players kind of relax after a long, hard-fought season. I mean, Kyle Kitchens was there, AJ Wetland, obviously Zach Edwards, Glenn Tunga. Like, it was cool to see those guys kind of let their guard down a little bit and enjoy the night.
speaking of Zach Edwards, I would say probably a little surprising. Uh, Even though he had a great year, he won Offensive Player of the Year, an award that Randy apparently forgot existed prior to coming on air. Um, uh, are you a little bit surprised by this? Because I actually am, based upon what happened in the MVP voting.
Yeah, so I guess who would you have had as your offensive player of the year?
I would have suspected Ben Holmes. Like,
See,
even with the injuries, I still think Ben Holmes was, for a whole year for the most part, or with the games that he played were, I mean, the numbers he put up were fantastic. So,
yeah. I thought the same thing, kind of, but I think I would have voted for Zach Edwards too, and nothing against Ben Holmes. But when you missed, what did you miss 3 games? I think it was three.
yeah, I think it was
So
three.
which is 25% of the season. So um, I I feel like if I was voting, which I'm not, but I would
Yeah,
vote for somebody that played every single game,
I think that's fair.
over somebody that only played 75% of the games, no matter how well they played. Ben Holmes played great when he did play, but Zach Edwards had a great year too. So I think either one, you could have gone either way, but I would have given the slight edge to Zach Edwards for having lasted a whole season.
I think it's a pretty fair assessment. I just was kind of, I guess I was just kind of maybe expecting that it would have been Ben Holmes because he was in the MVP run. Um,
Mm,
so usually when they do that, like they give the Offensive Player of the Year to the guy who was in the MVP chase and didn't quite make
yeah,
MVP. So I think Zach Edwards had a fantastic year. I'm not upset about it by any means. I probably would have voted for him too because Ben Holmes did miss, but I was just kind of, I guess maybe that's what might have hurt Holmes in this case and why they gave it to Edwards.
yeah. Yeah, I would think so. And yeah, you should be happy. Zach Edwards is your guy.
Eh,
You
Oh, I,
should.
I I like Zach Edwards a lot, man. I do like Zach Edwards. I think he's a good European quarterback for sure. Well, American quarterback in Europe, but yeah, I think so for sure. Uh, the one that I think was the most surprising to me, and I don't want to say most surprising because again, it's not like it's an upset per se, but Milan Spiller won Rookie of the Year, while Noah Torre won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Um, I I don't know if maybe it's just me, but I feel like that should have been flipped. Personally,
Yeah,
it's weird that they have three Rookie of the Years. By the way,
it is.
that's
It is.
strange, but
It is, and I wonder if I paid attention, but I was I was I was running all over. I was running like a chicken with my head cut off during that whole entire thing. I watched probably 10% of it. Um, I would think the reason they gave it to I don't know. I think Torre bursted onto the scene later in the year. If I maybe like the second half of the year, at least in my if I'll have to go look at the stats. But I feel like he really came into his own halfway through the year. Maybe that's why. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean, Spiller and Torre are both amazing, and I can't wait to see what they do moving forward by any stretch of the imagination. It's like they both deserved an award, and maybe that's the reason why they have 3 Rookie of the Year's awards. I don't know, but maybe they were like, well, we can't really decide, so we'll just do this and this and call it good. But they both had fantastic years, and they were a lot of fun to watch. So I'm very excited to see what happens moving forward with those guys as well. And obviously Glenn Tunga, I mean, we weren't 100% sure if they were going to give it to a running back, but the year that he had was just absolutely amazing, especially with Ryan starting off so slow at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. I mean, he, like you said, them starting off slow at the beginning of the year, he was kind of the glue or the engine that made the whole thing run. He kept them in a lot of games, and early in the season, before their offense found their rhythm, he was the reason why they were winning games. Him and that offensive line, they were putting the team on their back. So, and I think he'd probably be the first one to tell you that he would give the award to the offensive line too.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But they played great, especially when I think everybody at the beginning of the year is like, "What's wrong with Jadrian Clark?" Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time, especially when you've been playing year round. And to have somebody in the backfield that you can turn around and hand the ball off to on a consistent basis, who's picking up 5, 6, 7 yards a carry, he deserved that MVP.
Finals MVP, Jadrian Clark.
That's right.
For that matter.
Yep.
For that matter.
Yeah, and he played a wonderful game. I don't know. Do we want to get into the game? What else about the honors?
I am just a tour guide on this vessel. You are the driver, Randy. You can bring us anywhere you want. No, we could talk about the game. That's fine. I mean, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on the honors because I don't think there was really truly any like major upsets. Chris Kaleke winning Coach of the Year. I don't know if that I saw some people saying that it probably should have gone to Stugart, could have gone to Ryan, with Jim Tom Sula. I don't really think it mattered. I think it should have gone to either one of those three, but I would almost say that you could have probably even put Madrid's head coach in there as well, just because, as a expansion team, making the playoffs is a huge deal in the first year as well. So, yeah. Anyways, I don't know if there was anything else for you there. I mean, I don't know how you feel about Kaleke as the,
I didn't mind it, and the reason why I think that coaches win this award is one, either you turn around a program, or like Rip did, you took them to the playoffs in their first year. The other is you have to have some adversity through the season and overcome it in some major adversity. It doesn't get any worse than losing your starting quarterback for 3 weeks, and the whole thing could have gone awry if they didn't get that decision right when they brought in Sheldon Epler, and they just kept on ticking, and that's a huge testament to the head coach. So I felt like it was well deserved.
Yeah. I love Shelton Epler again. It's not really a surprise to me. I mean, not Shelton Epler, Chris Kaleke in Vienna, and bringing in Shelton Epler was a very high, a high power move for a franchise that probably really didn't need it because they're just so powerful in general. Anyways, they could probably have plugged anybody in there for the most part to play, but Epler really held his own, and I think he had 600 yards passing in 3 games. No, more than that. 750 yards passing, 150 yards passing in 2.5 games or something. It was crazy. It was nuts. Yeah, he was almost third in the league in passing in a 3-game stretch. So kudos to Shelton for that. So kudos to Shelton as well. So let's talk about the game. Obviously, the final score didn't go the way that we expected it to. Jamal, how's your arms, shoulders, chest? I don't know if you've done your. I don't know if you've done your.
Did we do them yet, or?
I don't know if you've done your 635 push-ups yet, or.
Do we need to break them up over the course of the next 3 months or something?
Yeah,
so many. I texted him before the game and I said, "You're gonna have." I can find it. I said something like, "You're gonna have so many push-ups."
Only 154. That's it. That's all he's got. 154. I think that's the most collectively. And you had 52 or one time or something like that.
Yeah.
He needs to add an extra 100 to that as well. So, Jamal, I hope you're ready for it. Hope you took your protein shake and you took your vitamins and said your prayers, brother. because those push-ups are going to be brutal. So, um, by all means, yeah. So
Yeah, I
this
just sent him. I sent him right before the game started. You're gonna have so many push-ups with a laugh emoji. Um, I felt pretty confident about it before the game started.
Yeah, well, Sam, you were told not to miss tonight, and then you just turned around and joined late anyways. So that's really cool. You know, I'm sure you were working though, so I guess you can get a pass by all means. We talked about what Randy's big news was. He was gone all weekend, so he had things to do. He
I'll,
literally had.
I'll say this: if anybody has questions, I'll try my best to answer them. If you want to throw them in the chat, even
Yeah,
if
for
we're
sure.
talking about the game, I'll jump in and answer them. I'm a little
Yeah,
jet lagged, so bear with me.
yeah. He's been in the States for all of 2 hours now, so since he's come back, and he was gracious enough to join me tonight. I was dead set to be like, no, we can do it tomorrow. Take some time to relax. He's like, let's go. Okay, well, let's jump on it. Let's jump on it. Let's do it. So,
No one
uh,
remembers the championship game on Wednesday. Like it's
I, I can't answer this one, but
when does
I,
Michael get his DPP job? Is that
I'm assuming
Department of
developmental.
Player Personnel
Yeah,
job?
just something like that. Yeah.
Hey, he can start right now. I'll get him a
Oh,
contract.
well, look at that.
Um, uh, no, I actually meant to talk to you off air about like if you had any suggestions. We can go over them now if you want on air.
Yeah. We can.
I was like,
Director of player personnel.
you're the one that follows every single one of these leagues. So if you have anybody that you're like, hey, take a look at this guy. We have we got a master list of hundreds of names. It looks like an NFL draft board. Um,
Oh,
so so
okay.
yeah.
Well. I will give my input on some of that if you don't mind. If you want to talk about this,
Absolutely.
but Jamal says he's going to do them right now off the rip. Like
Okay.
all 154 right now. I wish I could find a way to live stream that. I would just do it right here. By any means, a stretch of the imagination. So, the game, there's only 185. Oh, you owed him 30 from the semis. Oh, I thought you did those. Oh, that's right. We didn't have a show in between. 185, Jamal.
Jamal, I'll let you off the hook for any push-ups if you just talk good about the Nordic Storm for like the whole off season. How about that?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, he's gonna let you off the hook. Oh, that's an easy one.
some bribery.
Look at that. You can do a Nordic Storm. You and me, Jamal, can do a Nordic Storm podcast. We can do a team show.
Let's do it.
We can do an ELF Nordic Storm team show. We'll be the first one to bring it out here, uh, for sure. And you know what? Each episode he can start off the each episode with 10 push-ups while he's talking about the ELF and the Nordic Storm.
Well, that's gonna be a lot of shows we got to do to get those push-ups out of the way.
Shady Sports Fitness. The Shady Sports
That's
Fitness
right.
program. Right here, betting on push-ups by all means. Any stretch of the imagination. Were you a little bit surprised by Vienna being a little lethargic after the hot start?
No. And I was talking to some other people about this. The league needs to fix this for next year, and I'm sure they will. But there is no reason why. So Vienna, they're of course they actually came out a little hotter than I thought they were. They had a bye to end the season. They had a bye leading up to the semis. They then played the semis. They then had a bye leading up to the championship game, like everybody does. Whereas the Rhine Fire had played how many straight weeks in a row, and didn't have a bye in the playoffs this year, actually. And there's a lot to be said for that. You could see it too. Now, I will say Vienna's offense came out throwing punches, which is what you want to see. And the very first drive, when Vienna drove all the way down the field and scored and ended that drive with a touchdown to Reese Horn, I thought this game is going to come down to which defense plays better in the red zone, because these teams are moving the ball between the 20s easily. And then on that first Rhine Fire drive, they drove down to the 2, and then got into like a 3rd and 20 or 3rd and 15. And I was like, hey, if Vienna plays this game all along where they're trading touchdowns for field goals, it's going to be really interesting. And then obviously the pass interference on 3rd and forever. I mean, that's just a killer. But even so, I mean, Vienna was driving back down the field again when they fumbled. Um, then they fumbled again. And then one thing I do like that reffing crew a lot. I think it's the best reffing crew in the league. And that's why they obviously had them calling a championship game. But where the game really, really turned, at least you felt like it in the stadium, was on that interception that was
Yep.
called back and given a safety. That was such a bang bang ticky tack call that I would never want to see that thrown in a championship game. That flag thrown in a championship game. What were your?
Yeah. No, it's funny because you mentioned that about that reffing crew, and uh, I honestly, um, I honestly felt like that reffing crew was the best reffing crew all year, and I love that referee. I even told my wife, like I was like, he's my favorite referee. I'm glad that he's in this game. However, I did feel like it was a very sloppy start.
Yeah,
And I don't from both teams. There was a lot of mental mistakes happening on both sides. I know the opening drives both went up and down the field, but there was a lot of penalty riddle, like issues going on in both those situations. Ryan was bailed out on a penalty that went 5 yards and caused a first down. Vienna was bailed out on I think it was like a illegal contact that Ryan. It was basically a game between two teams that normally don't get heavily penalized, that were kind of making a lot of simple mistakes throughout the course of the game, right? But that interception was a big one, right? Like it just set that you felt it kind of change the atmosphere, even from home in the stadium. And then the safety was involved and all that stuff, and it was just like it almost felt like Vienna from that point on felt like they needed to be one dimensional to try to catch up and keep up with the Rhine Fire in that case. And I think they got away from their identity a little too much, personally. And I think it hurt them down the stretch because it allowed the offense to it didn't allow the offense to sustain long enough drives and let the defense recover. Um, and Ryan's going to eat you up all day with Glenn Tunga and Jadrian Clark if your defense is gassed at all.
yeah. And that interception, that play was a 9-point swing.
Yep.
And a 9-point swing when you're already down 8. It just was killer. And then one thing that I didn't love seeing, and I am a stickler for clock management. Like if there's anything that just pisses me off more watching a football game, it's poor clock management. And when Vienna drove down the field at the end of the first half, and there was I believe there was a minute and 20 or minute and 10 seconds left, and they were on their own 1 or 2 yard line. They had 25 or 30 seconds on the play clock. I turned to the person sitting next to me, so they better let this run all the way down and take a timeout. They don't. They snap the ball. And from that point on, I said, even if they score, I know Ryan Fire is going to drive right down and score. They're going to leave them way too much time, and they did. And then Ryan Fire started taking timeouts. If they would have let that clock wind down to 50 seconds because Ryan Fire was not taking a timeout and then scored, Ryan Fire would not have scored a touchdown. They scored with 21 seconds left. That was more than what was on the play clock in that kind of differential. It just ticked me off so much watching. But then you do that, Ryan Fire scores and they get the ball at half, so that's a 14-point swing. So just some mistakes from Vienna that when you make one of those mistakes against the Rhine Fire, you're in trouble. When you make 2, it's nearly impossible to win, like we saw Stuttgart do in the semis. When you do that, when you have defensive pass interference, 2 fumbles, the interception, penalty, safety, and terrible clock management, you have 5 horrible mistakes in one half. I mean, you can't recover playing against the Rhine Fire.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think that Vienna, for the most part, had done, was not make those mistakes throughout the course of the season. They had that one game where I think they won by 3. What was it against Helvetic? Was it Helvetic? Or
Yeah, when they won by
it was like 48-45 or something like that. They made those mistakes in that game, but they were playing no offense to Helvetic, but a lesser opponent than Rhine, because let's face it, Rhine's in the championship game for a reason. And you can't do that. Like no team for the most part is able to overcome those mistakes, right? Like you can't do it, especially in a championship game. Like
Yeah.
it's just not going to work.
No, it is frustrating. Like as somebody who's just a football fan, wanting it to be close. I think I caught. What did we say? What did I say? It was going to be 40-30 or 50-40 or something, and it had that feel
Yeah,
as the game started. Vienna doesn't make all those mistakes. It probably is the outcome, but yeah, it just Vienna shot themselves in the foot, and it looked like they had only played one game in 4 or 5 weeks.
and there's Caroline, ckcustoms.com. Go hit it up. Go hit it up. Make sure you get your order in as well, and do local, right, Caroline? Right?
Thanks for the shout out. I
Of
am.
course.
I'm going to bed. I was falling asleep working.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your European trip, and I'm glad that you're
Thank
home
you.
safe now and on American soil,
Thank
back here as well. Jamal gives you a shout out,
Hi,
CK.
Jamal.
Yep. Big old exclamation points after that as well. So
Jamal's not going to do push-ups, but he's going to talk good about the Nordic Storm. So
actually, Jamal said that he said he was done. I think maybe, or was that the present that he was agreeing to? He posted a little right here.
Oh yeah, done.
I don't know if that was the push-ups or if that was.
He did them. Okay.
As well.
Michael, I can give you I have to tell you something you have to watch on social media.
Oh boy, I can only imagine.
But I compiled a video over the last 2 years of all of the work that Randy's been doing with the background of the Nordic Storm.
Oh hell yeah! I gotta definitely check that out.
It's nothing fancy, but I'm super proud of it because I recorded a video over 2 years ago. Like, hey, we want to do this.
Hey, if you're proud of it and you did it, it doesn't need to be fancy. I'll definitely support it. I'll be there to throw that up there for sure.
Appreciate it.
Did you do it on Instagram?
It's on Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook, yep, I got you on both spots. How about that? I'll share you on all of
it.
I'll throw it on all the social media sites. Go to sleep, Randy said.
He's like falling asleep, standing up.
Go get some sleep, Caroline. You deserve it. For sure. Jamal brings up a good point though with Weidinger here.
Yeah,
he had a great game plan. He is definitely a master at finding a way, because if you think about it, like with the rough start at the beginning of the year, especially with Ryan as well, they still found a way to win this game. And I think Weidinger is actually a very much an unsung hero for this season, especially at the beginning of the year, with his ability to make adjustments in game, which a lot of coaches struggle with, if you think about it.
Yeah, it was impressive to watch. When you have guys running as open as they were against Vienna Vikings, that's coaching. Yes, maybe 20% players and just them being better athletes than what they're playing against. But that's oftentimes it was him scheming guys open. And it was impressive. And just the sequence of how he was calling the game, it never felt to me out of sync, out of rhythm. There was almost no wasted plays. And that's like if you're playing chess or and he storied something after the game. It was a chess piece, the king chess piece with like fire behind it. And that's what he's doing out there. It's like he's playing chess when some of these other guys are playing checkers.
Yeah, for sure. For the viewers out there that are with us, thank you foremost for joining us here on the season finale of Summer Showcase. We cover the ELF here, the European League of Football. I'm with Randy Schrader, one of the owners of the new expansion, the 18th team in the ELF for 2025 season, the Nordic Storm. If you have any questions for him, he will answer to his best ability. So if you have creative questions, I mean, I don't know if he can tell you what the square root of pi is, but maybe he can at least attempt it. He's going to attempt it. He's at nothing. Yeah.
Well,
well, I didn't know if you were a math person, so
not at all.
No, not a math person.
Math is. I got a calculator on my phone.
Yeah. After the teachers told us for years that we wouldn't walk around with calculators in our back pocket, Weidinger was playing Madden on Pro. He really was, actually. That's pretty much what he was doing by all
He
means
was.
as well. I was hoping for a little bit better for game. Jadrian Clark, though, like let's talk about Jadrian here for a minute because season did not start out the way that we expected it to with the former MVP. He kind of looked like he was out of sorts, out of sync with the team. The team looked like it was kind of struggling a little bit. Glenn Tunga, obviously the MVP this year, really saved the front half of this year. He really kind of redeemed himself with this game, though, against Vienna because he was making really, really good throws against a team that was pretty solid all year long defensively.
Yeah. Jadrian was impressive to watch because of his anticipation and his decisiveness. And you can really only see that in person. But he was Andrew. It takes one thing for your offense coordinator scheme guys open.
Right.
You have to have a quarterback that can put the ball where it needs to and make the right decisions. And 95% of the time, he did that. There was a play in the third quarter where he was the third quarter, maybe the fourth, but they were driving. And he throws it's a out of like kind of a condensed split, like very high, like he threw this 4 yards before the receiver broke on kind of like a little like hook curl route where they were just sitting in zone. But that's how much of like on the same page him and his receivers are. And
was that to Kofi or was that to McKnight?
It was to McKnight.
It was to McKnight, right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
I know what throw you're talking about. Yeah.
McKnight wasn't even starting to chop his feet on a break, and Jadrian had already thrown the ball. And it's just and that route too, from knowing Andrew Weidinger's route playbook a little bit, it doesn't necessarily have a yardage on it. Like it's just between the quarterback and receiver to kind of find the hole and figure it out. That was just one example. That was all day long, and they were dicing him up. So that was what was impressive to watch. Jadrian, it was impressive.
Yeah, and the other thing I really liked was over the course of the season, Jadrian being able to start getting more in sync with his receivers because, like we said, at the beginning of the year it was really out of sync. But Kofi, I think Kofi was a little banged up. Started getting healthier towards the end of the year. He was the go-to guy, not the big play guy, but the go-to guy on major plays in this game against Vienna. And it was just nice to see that coming from a guy who struggled at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and they also had some big shot plays too, and those don't happen without great blocking up front. And they kept him pretty clean all day where he could make those types of throws. And it was impressive to watch their offensive line work because Vienna was, but especially in the second half, was trying to throw some different things at him up front, and they handled it beautifully.
Yeah, they did a really good job. And I don't think Vienna played a poor game by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that it was a sloppy game for what they do. And the difference between them and Rhine was Rhine capitalized when those mistakes were made, whereas Vienna just didn't really ever get out of their own way, essentially.
Yeah, and watching the game too, I mean, we're talking about Andrew Weidinger, and you could tell the team that had 4 or 5 NFL coaches on the team.
Yes.
I mean, that's why I felt like they were going to win the game at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, you and I both picked Ryan in this situation. I mean, Jamal is a glutton for punishment and loves doing push-ups. That's why I think he picked Vienna. So
I get it. If Vienna would have come out like they did that first drive, if you take away the fumbles, and I mean, I know we're playing really crazy hypotheticals, but in a game where they play their better game, they don't make all those mistakes. It is a lot closer, and it probably is 40-30. It really does come down to which defense plays better in the red zone.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about if you eliminate the mistakes, if Vienna eliminates the mistakes, and Ryan isn't able to capitalize, this game is very much closer to a 40, 44 to, high 30, type of game. You know what I mean? Like it just, it feels like the mistakes were just too much to overcome for Vienna to be able to keep up with Rhine. And and the one thing that Rhine has been doing all year is just grinding defenses down. So in the second half, it just looks miserable.
Yeah. And I think to Jamal's point, was the moment too big for Vienna? I don't think so. I think that they've been in that championship game before, granted not in front of 41,000 people, but it didn't necessarily feel like the moment was too big. It felt like they hadn't played a football game. It felt like they had played one football game in 5 weeks is what it felt like, because that's what it was. And I just think the league needs to get rid of those last week buys, and it doesn't help.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I think with 18 teams, for 2025, the Nordic Storm being the 18th team moving forward, I think it might be a little bit easier to have that because they can do multiple bye weeks, on play, teams, and focus on trying to level that out a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier with an even number. The 2024 ELF champions, back-to-back, two-time champions, the Rhine Fire. It's actually the first team to go 2 times. We were going to have Vienna or Rhine because Vienna has won one before. So congratulations to the Rhine Fire. Congratulations to Jim Tom Sula and Jadrian Clark, all those guys in Tunga getting their back-to-back championships as well. The Nordic Storm, like I said, 18th team, 2025 for the ELF season. Randy Schrader, of course, as a part of the ownership group there and whatnot. I don't think there's anything else. It was a great season across the board, Randy. I don't know how you feel about the year. I know that you're excited for 2025. You got anything else here to add to this situation?
Yeah, I'm fired up for 2025.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
I'm fired up. I think it'll be a great season. I think that the league grew this year, and I know there's complaints about some of and we've talked about it on this show, but some of the lopsidedness of games. I think there's some easy fixes that can be made. For example, just simply scheduling.
Yeah.
I think that the league will do that this year. But the game is growing in Europe, and to have 41,000 plus at a championship game is insane. And next year being in Stuttgart, I anticipate it being a highly attended event as well. And that stadium in Stuttgart is nice. It's probably one of the nicer, newer, modern stadiums in the whole of Germany.
And I'm going to mention this. I didn't want to just mention and harp on the 41,000 plus. I mean, that's a great number, super impressive. But I think the thing that impressed me the most was what you said to me off air right before we came on air, and that was after the game. What happened after the game with the 41,000 people that were there for the most part?
Yeah, nobody left. Nobody left the stadium. They watched the entire ceremony, even after the players had kind of started walking off the field. They're all just in there having a great time, hanging out. They had to kick people out of the stadium. The game, an hour after the game ended, I had fans messaging me complaining like it's super unprofessional that they kicked me out of the stadium an hour after the game ended. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? In the States, that would never happen. It was just impressive. I mean, obviously some people left, but I was telling Michael there was probably 35,000 people still in that stadium after the game was over. And a lot of them, it was pretty much a Rhine Fire home game. So that's a big reason. But it was just really cool to see. And it just goes to show kind of the spirit that people have for American football over there.
Yeah, and there it is.
There we go.
Official.
Shady
Sports
Network.
He gave you an out, Jamal. He gave you an out.
I did. 185 push-ups is a lot, man.
That is a lot. Yes, that is a ton. I'm gonna go check that and share that out. And Jamal's getting back into playing shape.
Yeah, Jamal's gonna play for the Nordic Storm next year.
Hey, Nordic Storm 2025. Let's go. Let's go.
I gotta find this video now.
Shout out to everybody, by the way, for the viewership. Our viewership numbers increased over the course of the year. We got some really strong numbers. I really appreciate everybody that stuck with us. I appreciate Jamal, my unofficial producer. I look good in blue. I bet you do, Jamal. I'm going to say I bet you do. And I'm hoping that these jerseys are fantastic. So concept designs are all over the place, but I think that we could do some real big things with these uniforms for sure. Um, without a doubt. Shout out to Jamal though. Jamal, thank you again, man. You've been a great supporter for us. You've been very constant, in commenting and so sharing and everything else. So follow Athletes Forum, follow the Jamal Clay on I think it's J Clay 15 on X for all your ELF news. But he also posts a great content across the board. He's fantastic. He's knowledgeable. I've learned so much from him. There's a shout out of other people, Euroball's Chow, Fourth Down Fiasco. I got to give a shout out to them as well. Rhine Fire News. I didn't tag them earlier. I feel terrible about it now. I got to go back and do it. Justin Kellum, et cetera, et cetera. I can thank everybody. Thanks Shady Sports Network, Sam Shady, giving us a platform here to do Summer Showcase as we wind down the second installment of the Summer Showcase show. The season finale here. The championship week is over. Nordic Storm 2025, Randy Schrader, man, I appreciate you, man. I really, really do. I know I've said it numerous times, but I'm really glad that you were able to join me all year and really make this show super successful for year 2. And I'm looking forward to year 3. Hopefully we can have just as much success as we did with you here this year for sure. So I appreciate you, of course, as always.
Well, big shout out to all of you for shedding a light. I know I say this all the time, but the more people shedding light on American football in Europe, the better, because it is the best sport in the world. And that's at the end of the day what we're all trying to do, is grow the game over there, because we love it, and it's a great game. I think this year's been a lot of fun. And as you're saying that, Michael, I'm getting sad because I'm like, oh man, it really is over. It's over. But big things in store for 2025. It should be a great season, especially as the ELF is coming out of its infancy here, and we can really start to hopefully see it take off. So we're excited for what next year has in store.
Yeah, definitely excited for in store. Randy, podcasting, Big Mike, it's never goodbye. It is until next time for sure. And I'm sure we'll all be in touch and discussing news and everything else that's going to be going on and whatever else. I did want to mention one thing too, real quick, before we go. The ELF championship game had a higher attendance than the UFL championship game did. Just going to throw that out there. So it's definitely growing over there for sure. So that's good news. It's big news. I'm Michael Washington. He's Randy Schrader. Make sure you hit the Shady Sports Network. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little notification for whenever we have other videos. We are putting out stuff all the time. ELF Summer Showcase is done for this year, but I will be back next year, hopefully with a new co-host that, can hold the fort down in Randy's spot. But Randy, I'm hoping to have you back next year at some point in time as well. So hopefully you're not too busy for me.
I'm never too busy for Big Mike.
Yeah, no doubt. Until next time, I'm Michael Washington. He's Randy Schrader. Good night, and I'll see you next year.